Well, hello and welcome to 2024, February 22nd, Aries-vcx call. Uh, Today's call I would like to dedicate mainly to a presentation or a review, sort of a review of the Aries-vcx architecture, which was recently asked about on Discord. So I think this is good opportunity to go through it and revisit the current architecture or perhaps the plans forward. Um, but before we get into that, let's just quickly recap the usual agenda points. The work recently done and the work in progress. There's no significant updates at the moment, as we are pretty much still working on the big items we had open for a while now, that being Aries Ascar world implementation. That's slowly coming to fruition. Almost completed, I would say. We're just missing some. Need to fix one job in the CI, and we are pretty much there. This was approved from my side. So yeah, we'll have Oscar wallet as a alternative wallet implementation for our wallet interface, and perhaps going forward, we might drop the original, or at least deprecate the original VDR tools / Indie SDK based wallet. So Oscar will be looking to put Oscar as a first class citizen when it comes to wallet implementation. Secondly, we've been doing a lots of work on the AnonCreds RS integration side of things. So basically the library, the component implementing, working, interacting with AnonCreds verifiable credentials. Historically, we've been using in the SDK. Just for recap, then we moved to Credex library, and now we are in the process of migrating to AnonCreds RS, which is sort of enhanced Credex library, but with some further modifications. So we now have both Credex and AnonCreds RS implementations available, and the integration, this addition has triggered lots of additional refactorings, pointed out lots of shortcomings in the code base, lots of things, lots of essentially old technical debt, which has been now paid off greatly. Lots of things has been typed which wasn't, and it was passed around as strings. So this is really great. Kudos to Mira for all this work. We have merged a whole bunch of these kind of refactoring PRs by Miragi just in last couple days, especially in the last 2 weeks, as most of this work has been done. And lastly, the third big item currently in progress still is the DID exchange protocol and the DID core components refactoring. This has been done already in December, but we are looking to get the Aries agent test harness testing verified before we merge this in. So we are busy with this. It's ongoing effort. So yeah, hopefully we'll get there soon. And so now let's move on to the architecture overview as the main thing on today's agenda. Let's have a look on this draw.io graph diagram I prepared. It's not some sort of beauty, but it should serve the purpose, and hopefully it's also simple enough. So the structure of this diagram is kind of reflecting the structure of the repo itself. So if we have a look at the repository, Aries-vcx, we see a few directories, right? So we have Aries and we have Bitcore, and then we have MISC. But really the main two things in the repo are these two directories, which are the 99% of the repo. And so this separation is important because did core, that's more foundational component, which is agnostic of Aries, doesn't really know that Aries exists. It's simply implementation of the more foundational components defined in W3C standards. So in did core, we have a whole bunch of components, subcomponents. I guess the best way to look at it is from bottom up, from the most foundational pieces to the higher levels of abstraction. So we have a did parser. This is deprecated now as it was replaced by did parser nom. It's essentially the same thing. It's just that the implementation in the new one, the green one, is far more robust, more correct, and presumably reliable. So, however, this new component is not integrated with the rest of the code base, but it shouldn't be it should be fairly simple as these two crates have uh, essentially the same interface, just differ in the underlying implementation. So in the soon future, we are looking to remove this deprecated DID parser in favor of DID parser nom. And essentially what both of these are doing is representation of DIDs, qualified and unqualified, make sure that these DIDs are parsed correctly. They also support construction of DIDs, fetching the data, you know, fetching the data on the DIDs, as some sort of getters, stuff like that. So this is the DID representation. It's one of the most foundational thing in DIDCOM. Secondly, I guess the second most basic thing we have, the most basic construct is did-doc. So for that we have DID underscore doc crate right here. And that's again just data model of DID document, parsing, construction, manipulation, resolving data fragments within a single DID document. It's a put on yellow state as a reflecting in progress. This was technically done, but there's some bigger not really refactoring, bigger change, a big simplification ongoing in a PR 1075, which is open and hopefully to be merged soon. So yeah, nevertheless the crate is meant to represent the document and enable users to work with it. So these things again, all of these things have nothing to do with Aries. These components might be very useful for consumers outside of Aries ecosystem, just looking to work with DIDCOM 1, DIDCOM 2. On top of these, oh, I missed one more component. We have public underscore key, essentially just Rust types representing public keys of different crypto schemes, making it easier to work with these things, handling some encoding and stuff like that. On top of these basic components, keys, did-doc, and did, we have did resolver, which is essentially just defined interface for how we want to resolve DID methods. This doesn't really provide any specific implementation, rather just a plain interface. And then we have other components on top of that, which essentially supply implementation of the traits defined in DID resolver. So we have implementation for did peer, did key, did solve, did web, and lastly, we have this kind of called component called DID resolver registry, which essentially enables you to register one or many of these individual resolver implementation into the resolver container. And then you can try to resolve the IDs in runtime and being agnostic as to what's the particular implementation you need for getting the DID resolved into a DID document. So if you can't resolve, if you didn't register certain DID method and you try to resolve it, obviously you'll get runtime error. But if you happen to register a valid resolver for the method you're trying to resolve, then you get a DID doc, and you don't really have to care about how the thing was resolved and what's happening under the hood. So it's kind of shields you off from the specific resolvers and being aware of what method you are dealing with. So these are the basic DID core components, really just encapsulating DIDs and DID documents. And on top of this, basically this serves as a foundation for Aries components built on this DID core, and that's right here. So now moving in the repo back to the other directory, which is reflected by this whole gray area here, Aries area. So let's have a peek in here. And again, when we look in the Aries, we see number of directories here. So we have agents, we have Aries-vcx, Aries-vcx core, messages, plus some others and wrappers. This is pretty much reflected here. So we have wrappers, that's directory over here. Wrappers are one of the most top level FFI it provides. Currently, there's wrappers for Node.js, and there's another UniFFI based wrapper, which essentially provides one-to-one mappings to Aries underscore VCX crate, which generates Kotlin and Swift bindings. Yeah, so these are the wrappers which you can consume from other languages. Secondly, we have here area of agents. These are essentially full-blown applications you can run. So we have a mediator, which was as relatively recently. It was our mentorship project. Kudos to our mentee Nayan. Essentially, yeah, for mediating DIDCOM v1 messages. We then have Aries-vcx back channel, which serves for testing, interoperability testing of Aries-vcx against other Aries implementations. And here in the orange coded square, not yet implemented, but sort of on a roadmap, enterprise issuer verifier. This can be an agent which something like Akapai, but implemented in Rust for issuing and verifying credentials, managing DITCOM connections, stuff like that. And then lastly, it has a whole area called framework, which also doesn't exist yet, but kind of hovering in our minds as something to be done in the future. Maybe I'll leave this area for the end. So I'll skip that over for now. We have agents in the repo, again, in directory agents. There's also some Node.js implementation. There's Rust implementation of agents. And what else we have here? So these wrappers and agents, they all have what they all have in common is that they're building on the crate, kind of a first-class citizen in the domain of Aries called Aries_vcx. Now, at this point, I want to make important comments, node warning, perhaps, to understand the separation, to understand the difference between the repository name and the crate. So historically, the Aries implementation was the only thing which this repository was preoccupied with. And we did not in past implement Aries agnostic did core stuff as we do now. So we kind of got keep carrying on the repo name Aries-vcx. But really, Aries is just one of the things we do. And Aries_vcx is a one particular crate right here, which is contained in the repo. But there's lots of other stuff than Aries-vcx, in fact. So it happens to be that the repository is called Aries-vcx, but contains lots of stuff. We might actually rename the repository in the future. But yeah, now going into the Aries domain in particular, we have a whole bunch of stuff. We have these wrappers, we have agents. They are all building on top of a crate, a library called Aries_vcx. So this is the library we are looking at here right now, called Aries_vcx. It's a Rust crate, essentially library for processing and constructing Aries messages. So you receive an out-of-band invitation, or you receive a credential offer. Now you want to process that. You need to do a whole bunch of stuff typically in order to process this message. You might need to generate some keys in the wallet. You might need to resolve some stuff on the ledger, or basically any kind of data registry. So you need to process the message you received in certain way, do this kind of operations, whatever it might entail. And then after you finish this processing, you construct a response message, whether there will be a connection request or credential request or something else. That is what Aries_vcx is helping you to do. It is possible to use it in a functional way, but it also kind of comes with the abstraction of state machines, which helps you to keep the data intact, which you will need in the following stages of protocol. You are, communicating with your counterparty through. So Aries-vcx is kind of a glue of these various more basic components. Again, gluing together the wallet, the dealing with the particular verifiable credentials implementations, dealing with DID resolvers, anon creds, resolvers, stuff like that. Lots of these things in terms of wallet, ledger, and anon creds is taken out into this smaller crate called Aries-vcx under Aries-vcx core, which provides actually essentially interfaces to deal with these components, and also various implementations. So, for example, at the current moment, there's two implementations of the wallet. You can either choose to go with VDR tools / in the SDK based wallet, or you can go with Aries Ascar wallet. Likewise, with Anon creds, there's Credex implementation, which is more stable, and there's Anon creds Ares library based implementation, which is still in progress. So these interfaces are showing us from the particular implementation details and what's happening under the hood. And Aries-vcx is leveraging these interfaces to do the more Aries specific logic to process messages and generate the responses for Aries protocols. Obviously, one important component to process messages and build them is having data model for these Aries messages. That's what's contained in a messages crate, which is also right here, Aries underscore messages. That currently contains support for DITCOM v1, DITCOM v2 coming in the future. So that's pretty much the Aries stuff and roughly how it works. If you want to build your, new agent or mobile SDK, for example, institutional agent or CLI agent, whatever it might be, or framework to kind of create higher level abstraction, you would be building on top of the Aries-vcx crate as we do today. So one I would say, I'm not sure if it's shortcoming, but it's definitely a property of the current implementation, is that Aries-vcx is more of a library than framework. It's pretty open-ended, and it doesn't dictate how you're gonna deal with inbounds, outbounds, and basically message matching and resolution. So these are things which currently tends to be re-implemented in each agent implementation. So we have implementation for the interoperability testing agent, which receives Aries message from a counterparty through certain endpoint or a mediator. It gets the message somehow. That's the inbound part. It needs to provide some sort of inbounds. Secondly, it needs to do the message matching. So you receive a You receive a message. You typically need to look at its thread ID and the sender to understand where is this message coming from and in what context you have received it. And you need to match that to some context in your state, in your storage, to be able to understand whether this message even makes sense, whether it's valid, and who it's coming from. So that's something that tends to be also re-implemented currently by each agent implementation individually. And lastly, once you generate the response, you need to send that message somehow out. So again, each of the agents right now handles that on their own. So yeah, so there is a fair amount of reduplication, and if you, for example, look at uh, the mediator, um, yeah, even the mediator receives a message. It needs to match it against its context. Similar things is happening in the Aries backchannel testing. We also, in fact, have one more component here, which I missed. There's one more crate, which is UniFFI Aries-vcx demo. And this is mobile application, mobile agent implementation based on create UniFI Aries-vcx. So we have essentially Android mobile agent, Android/iOS mobile agent, uh, based on this UniFi wrapper. It's doing, just like Mediator, just like Aries-vcx agent, it needs to handle inbounds. It needs to handle message matching and outbounds on its own. So this is part of the code which tends to be implemented. And therefore, I have put here this to be done flagged whole area, some kind of a framework. So given that Aries-vcx crate is a library, we can imagine creating somewhat more batteries included package on top of Aries-vcx, which the agent implementations or FFI wrappers might harness in the future to just avoid the re-implementation, or at least sharing the interfaces. Yeah, so as it states here, basically the idea will be to abstract patterns commonly re-implemented among Aries applications, which typically includes these things we mentioned: inbounds, outbounds, thread matchings. So that's the idea behind the framework. Doesn't exist yet either. That's why it's orange. It's something to be done in the future. Currently just hovering in our minds. And yeah, this is pretty much the 30,000 feet overview of the things in the repo and structure. Um, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's more to be said here. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. So I'll wrap it up. You can leave questions on Discord if or just drop me a private message directly if you would like to. We have a channel on Discord. We'll be very happy if you decide to use any of our components, whether it will be the more basic did core stuff, or decide to build agent or agent/framework/ SDK on top of our Aries abstractions. Yeah, I think we covered it all. So this diagram will be shared in the repository, in the docs area, as well as on the on our wiki page for these calls. So we can wrap this up. We did 2024 Outlook in our previous calls. There are still notes left here. We'll kind of need to sort throughout it, perhaps on the next calls. But we, in fact, have already started addressing some of these items, which is awesome. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in, and have a good one.